Welcome back to Dad's Reflecting, the podcast where we dive deep into lessons learned from life, leadership, and fatherhood. I am your host, Edwin, and today I want to talk a little bit about leading by example and also talking about leading by example. This goes along by saying that something simple but powerful, kids learn more from what we do than what we say. And I asked the question, have you ever noticed that your kids pick up things you didn't even mean to teach? Or maybe they mimic the way we hold our phone and the way we sigh when we're frustrated, or even how we treat other people. That's because children are wired to observe and absorb. Long before, they understand words, they understand actions. And today we're breaking down what it really means to lead by example through integrity, respect, and resilience, because at the end of the day, we don't just raise kids, we shape future adults. And the biggest lessons they learn come from how we live, not just what we tell them. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So my first point will be the power of actions over words. Kids are like sponges. They don't listen, they watch, mimic, and also internalize everything. So for me, what that means is I must learn, I must present I'm not going to say a perfect example, but an example of what it means at whatever that present moment calls me to be. I have to be that as an example, because I know that, my son will be watching. And also a personal moment that really means me realizing this was with my son, a personal story. The other day I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone and I was completely zoned out. And my 1-year-old son was playing nearby, right next to me. And after a few minutes, I noticed him pick up one of his toy blocks and hold it in both hands and started tapping on it, just like I do with my phone. That moment stopped me, and I realized he's only one, but he is already picking up my habits. So if I'm always distracted, what I'm teaching him, that screens come from real connections, that checking my phone is more important than being present. That realization made me more intentional. Now that we're together, I try to put my phone down more often, because if I want him to be engaged with the world, I need to show him what that looks like. My second point is integrity, practicing what I preach. And integrity is about, being consistent between what we say and what we do. If we want our kids to be honest, we need to model honesty, even when it's hard. Small moments matter. Have you ever told your kid, I'll be right there, but then got caught up in something and didn't follow through? It might not seem like a big deal in the moment, but over time, it sends a message that our words don't always align. They don't always mean what they should. And another part of integrity is owning our mistakes, and, a quick example, if you snap out of frustration and make sure to acknowledge it and say something like that wasn't the best way to handle it and apologize, just that small act would teach, our kids accountability. And our kids don't just need us to be perfect. As I said in the previous podcast, they need to see what we're trying to do, that we're trying to do the right thing. And my next point is respect, and that is how you treat others. It sets the tone. Respect isn't just about teaching kids to say please and thank you. It's about how we interact with people every day. And kids pick up on the way we treat our spouses, our wives, our mothers, sisters, brothers, cousins, family members, and all together, the store clerks, and even strangers. So, a quick example, if I'm driving and someone cuts me off, I have two choices. I can yell and complain, or I can take a deep breath and move on. Even though my son is too young to understand road rage, he'll eventually pick up on how I handle frustration. It's not just about how we treat people directly, but also how we talk about others. If we constantly criticize or judge people in front of our kids, they learn to do the same thing. And the best way to teach respect is to model it. And whether it's holding the door for someone, being patient in a long line, or simply listening when someone speaks. And my next talking point is resilience. Life is full of setbacks, especially these times and days how things are changing, and our kids need to learn how to bounce back from these challenges. And once again, I give a quick example. Imagine you're dealing with a stressful situation. Maybe it's a job loss, a financial struggle, just, a personal setback. How we handle it sets the tone for how our child will face challenges in their own life. And if they see us completely shut down every time something goes wrong, they might learn that setbacks are overwhelming. But if they see us take a deep breath and learn to problem solve and keep pushing forward, they learn resilience. And as fathers, we're looked up as being, leaders, protectors, and providers. And I think part of that being a leader part is learning to be strategic and learning to solve, be situational. When situations come, we have to think from a logical standpoint, whatever the situation is, to come up with the solution for that situation. So along with that is being solution based, solution mindset as well. It's okay for our kids to see us struggle as long as they also see us work through it. A storytelling tip, sharing stories from our own past times when we fail, but keep going. It'll help our kids understand the future is part of growth. And my next talking point, the daily habits that shape our kids. It's not always the big moments that define our kids' lessons. It's the small everyday habits. Do we read books or spend all our time in front of screens? Do we make time for exercise and self-care, or do we always seem too busy? Do we express gratitude, or do we constantly complain? Our kids observe these patterns and turn them into their own behaviors. So, in closing and takeaway, our kids won't always remember what we tell them, but they never forget what we show them. And I remember the other day I saw a meme, and it had mentioned that kids won't remember the advice you gave them. They remember what they saw. And every day, they're watching how we move through the world, the way we handle stress and how we treat others. And whether we live by the values we preach, this all matters. So here's a challenge for this week. Pick one thing, just one thing that you want your child to learn from you. Maybe it's patience, or maybe it's even discipline or kindness. Whatever it is, we have to make sure we practice it first, because at the end of the day, we don't just raise kids, we shape future adults. And that's it for today's